Metalheads! Welcome to another episode of Metal Verbalizers podcast. Do you like the music from the 80s? More specifically, heavy metal from the 80s? Do you like cyberpunk? Then I might have the band for you. I personally love the rock and the metal from the 80s, and I know that a lot of you do as well. So what better than bringing you a band that brings us back to that music? This is Nitrate. Nitrate is a melodic rock slash AOR band based in England, and already there, we know that this is going to be a good one. UK has produced some of the best bands in history of rock and metal. I mean, from the UK, we got bands like Motorhead, we got Judas Priest, we got Ozzy Osbourne slash Black Sabbath, and AC/DC. AC/DC we can discuss if they are from the UK or Australia, but all the main members of AC/DC are born in the UK, but I believe that the band was started in Australia. But I sort of count AC/DC as a UK band as well. Nitrate was, like I said, started in England, and they debuted with their first release in 2018. But the band itself started as a project, as I understand it, back in 2016. When talking about their sound, we can clearly hear the 80s synths and melodic lead guitar playing. Bands that have influenced the sound of Nitrate are Mötley Crüe, Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, Europe, and Danger Danger. I think that you can clearly hear these influences, and in some songs, some influences become more clear than others. So if I mentioned any of your favorite bands, I would say that you have a really good chance of liking Nitrate. When it comes to the lyrics, it isn't really anything like super special, but we got a little bit of a variety with some common genres like boy meets girl, relationships, and parties, etc., etc. Those, like, are very common for this genre, so I guess it makes sense to actually write music about them. And it would be interesting to hear from the band themselves if there are any, like, personal stories hidden in the lyrics. But anyway, since we've talked about the sound of the band, I think it's a good time to talk a little bit about the actual music that the band has released. As of right now, the band has released 3 full-length albums, and the first one was released in 2018, like I mentioned, even though if on Spotify it says that it was released in 2020. But that's wrong, I believe. The name of this album is Real World. It is hard to miss that we have inspiration from the 80s, with catchy hooks, atmospheric synths, and heavy guitar riffing. Maybe some occasional, like, cowbell here and there as well, but I don't know. On this album, you will find great songs like Crazy Like You, Hot Summer Nights, and of course the title track, Real World. Next album on the list is going to be Open Wide, which, as I understand it, was released just a year after Real World in 2019. I guess that can be common for newly started bands to put out at least 2 albums quite fast, so that you have more songs to make a setlist from when playing live. And this album is maybe closer to hair metal than AOR in my opinion, but that does not mean that the album is any less heavy or as good as the previous one. I personally love hair metal and think that it is a genre that has got an undeserved bad rep. I think it is a fantastic album that has great songs like You Want It, You Got It, Never Surrender, and Bad Girls. Next in line, we got a single released in 2021 called Big City Lights. Here we go into what I call AOR, and it is a great song. We even got some call and response between the singer and the backup vocals. And this maybe opens up possibilities to have some fun with the audience as well, which I think is actually perfect for a live. This single is of course not going to stand by itself. The single is featured on an album called Renegade. The whole album seems to follow the same kind of theme or sound as the single. We hear it in more songs, but I think that it is very clear in a song called You Think You Got It. In this song we have some serious Def Leppard vibes, especially with the reverb heavy drums and the backup vocals. Besides You Think You Got It and the single, we got songs like Danger Zone, Addicted, and Edge of Surrender. Interesting trivia with this album is that it was actually so well received by the audience that it sold out on physical copies. I love the fact that people still buy physical copies of the albums, even though most people stream their music nowadays. It must be such a feeling for bands of this size when you release an album and it actually gets sold out. I think that must be such a good feeling. The final release from the band is a single called Wild in the City. This song has been released this year in 2023, and it is an absolute banger. If you can sit still to this song, you must hate music. To this song they have also made a music video actually, that you can find online and watch. And this video has some serious cyberpunk vibes, which I think really fit the sound of the band and the song. Since we have gone through the released albums from the band, I think it is a perfect time to bring in my little segment that I call Erik's Top 5. I want you to see this list as the list on Spotify, where they list popular songs from the bands. This is where I think that you should start when listening to Nitrate. But remember that there are absolute gems that don't appear on the list, but they are for you to discover. So let's go. Number 1, Hot Summer Nights from Real World. Number 2, You Want It, You Got It from Open Wide. Number 3, Big City Lights from Renegade. And number 4, Danger Zone from Renegade. Number 5, Wild in the City, which is a single as of right now. This was my top 5 list, but now we want to know if you agree with the list, or do you think that other songs should have been on the list? I would love if you would head on over to our social media and give us your own top 5 lists. When it comes to the future for the band, we got quite a bit going on actually. I mentioned the single that they released this year, and it looks like it isn't going to stand by itself either. And actually not for long. I have had a little bit of a contact with the band, and they have revealed that an album will be released this year. And soon as well. Also, they are planning and working on a tour for 2024. Are you going to see them live? Let us know. They have already announced the new album, and the name is going to be Feel the Heat. When considering the artwork for this album, it looks like they are going to continue the cyberpunk vibe, since their bass player and drummer are fans of sci-fi. In this case, the artwork is going to be inspired by the movie Blade Runner from the 80s. I think it's very fitting to have an artwork that is inspired from something from the 80s, since they are playing 80s style music. If we're looking at the bigger picture, I would say that it can only go up from here for the band. They have recently signed with Frontier Records and will release the next album through them. I think that Frontier really can help them to take the band to the next level. Frontier Records has got bands like Crash Diet, Danger Danger, Mr. Big, and Orianthe. And those groups or artists are doing absolutely amazing, with over 4 million monthly listeners if you just look at Spotify. With that said, I think that Nitrates are in very good hands. And I think that it is a good time right now to start wrapping things up. If it sounds like you might like Nitrate, don't hesitate to give them a listen. I would say that the music is heavy metal with a party vibe, so you can't be disappointed. While you're at it, don't forget to give their social media a follow as well. They're super good at updating their social media with what they're up to. Like I always say, it is a super good way and free to support the band and help them to reach out to new people. And if you like what we are doing here on Metal Verbalizers podcast, bringing you the latest in metal, don't forget to give us a follow as well so that you stay updated on what we are up to next and what band we are going to verbalize next. Sometimes we're actually talking to the bands as well and interview them or have them come on the podcast and tell their stories from the road. If you follow our socials, you can also be the one to tell us about bands that you want us to verbalize next. So thanks for listening. You've been listening to Metal Verbalizers podcast, Verbalizing Nitrate.